Hello and welcome welcome all to the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast. I'm your host, Steve Smith. It is the year 2021. We are slowly but surely getting our freedoms back here in Australia from a COVID world. You are on planet Earth. This is episode number 15. Now, I'm going to start out by apologising for having a few weeks without giving you a podcast in between. I have been up to the Gold Coast doing a little bit of work, a little bit of a break around getting some more information about what's going on in the golfing landscape. And I've also been playing a little bit of golf up there too. So I do apologise that I haven't dropped one in. I was going to do a recording session up there, but it all fell apart on me. Technology and so on and so forth. But look, I'm here now. So thank you again for joining in and listening. I do appreciate you once again taking your time out to listen to all the bits and pieces that I can give you. Hopefully you find it entertaining as always. And this time we've got another interview to share with you. So got to give you an update, start off with walking the fairways as we always do, and a little bit of news coming in and around all over the country as I try and keep you updated and informed of what's going on and what's improving and what's out there to be excited about on golf courses. And on today's episode, I've got an interview with Tony Ellis, the Nomadic Golfer. Now, that's the handle that Tony goes by on Instagram, and he has a website, a blog, but Tony epitomises what we can only but do in a COVID world, which is basically travel around in our own country playing golf. And I wanted to get to chat to Tony. I wanted to get to know Tony and pick in his brains a little bit. What's behind his sort of quest to play these golf courses around Australia and what he's seeing and what he's experiencing. And that's just something that I really wanted to get out of Tony when I had a chat to him in the interview in today's episode. Let's get stuck into the podcast. Welcome to you all, and thanks for joining me on Walking the Fairways. Let's wander the fairways of Australian golf. Let's go. I just got to start with it again. It's just too exciting. 7 Mile Beach Golf Course in Tasmania and Hobart. We're just going to go back there. Why not? Why wouldn't you want to? It's just too good. Now, I've talked about 7 Mile before, as you probably know, on the last podcast. And we're now starting to see a few more pieces of the puzzle coming out from Matt Goggin, who's the man behind the project at 7 Mile Beach, and Clayton DeVries Pont, who are the now appointed architects of the project. Now, the things we're starting to see are things like the routing map, the topographical maps, just showing you the lay of the land and how the golf course is going to be positioned and played out in a rough form. That's, these plans and maps are rough guides. They're not exact things that the architects will massage and work a little bit on the ground. So you've got a bit of an idea of how it's going to look and feel and flow, and where some of the hole positions and green sites will be pretty close to on the ground. But like I said, it's not a definite thing. They often get massaged around on the ground as the architects see them basically develop and unfold in front of their eyes, and they just look at things and see how they want to tweak it as they go along. So this is some of the good stuff that we're seeing now, which is fantastic. And you need to be searching for this stuff. You find these things, Google them, social media search for them. It's just getting more and more exciting with every post that they do on their social medias. There's more photos coming out of the site now too. So Matt Goggin on the 7 Mile Beach Instagram page, for example, they're putting out some photos of the site itself in its raw form as it stands right now, before they push anything around, before they start dealing with the landscape itself and some of the vegetation that's there on site that they've got to. Some of it will be removed and some of it be massaged around to form, fairways and hole corridors and all that sort of stuff. We're seeing these insights now. We're starting to see some more of these photos of the site itself, and it shows you just how special a location it really is. So do yourself a favor and search out their socials to stay up to date with what's happening at 7 Mile. We bounce to Victoria, heading a little bit further north to the state of Victoria, across the Bass Strait there, into a little bit of work that's happening with some sand slitting. Now, some of you may know what that is. Some of you may not have any idea what sand slitting is. And that's going on at a couple of golf courses, being that of Frankston and Phillip Island. Now, McMahon's are the contracting company that are doing the work. And you might have heard me mention that name before. And they're the company tasked with the construction of a new Cannon Hill golf course in Brisbane. But we go back to Victoria, and we'll stick with the sand slitting bit of news that I'm talking about. And basically, it's a type of drainage installation is what sand slitting is. It's a type of drainage. And the installation itself is sort of whereby large specialized machinery is used to cut a trench or multiple trenches, depending on how much work needs to be done, into areas of turf that obviously have poor drainage. And when it comes to sand slitting, those trenches, that this specialized machinery is just awesome gear, absolutely awesome gear. And when it's used, so it cuts the trench, nice, fine sort of trench. I'm talking, somewhere in around the sort of 200 mil mark in terms of width, there or thereabouts. It's not huge, but these machines do it so neat and tidy. It's quite incredible how good this bit of gear is. So they cut these trenches in, and they're usually filled with a portion of gravel and slotted pipe, or what we call ag pipe, in the bottom, and that fills the bed of the trench. And then on top is usually filled with a specific type of sand, which is selected for its drainage properties, and that's filled all the way to the top of the trench, level with the surrounding turf. Now, the beauty of these sorts of trenches and the way that this work's carried out is the surrounding grass is very easy for it to grow over the trenches and through that top of the sand itself, or it can be seeded as well. And what that does is it's very free draining in that line that's been done. And once the grass and the roots grow into it, it's still free draining. It's effectively, roughly, for want of a better way of saying it, is it's like a green profile, which is sand on a newly constructed green. But once those roots grow in, the sand is still free draining. It's not a soil. And this allows water to seep in from the sides of the trench and the heavier existing soil into the sand-filled trench, and then fall to the bottom in the gravel layer, into the ag pipe, and then flow away out of the profile and gone. And that's a short version of how a bit of drainage works, but that's the essence of this stuff. But the reason these things can go in so easily is because of this machinery and the way that it's done in a modern way, not by hand anymore. And, meters upon meters upon meters of drainage can be put in through this sand slitting. And it's really effective in getting rid of the water in these heavier, lower lying areas where the soil is a bit heavier, or it just water sort of accumulates through the soil and comes downhill and into these sorts of areas. It also does get a little bit of water from the surface to drop down to the trenches, but it's mostly about that lateral movement of water through those profiles. And that's why the surface is left open, so that in heavier rainfall, it will literally move across into those trenches and just drop straight down to the trench and get away. And that just flows along to an outlet or a collection point, like I mentioned, and it will just it is a way of removing that water and getting it out and away to a point that's away from the area that you're trying to drain, which is great. We now move to the little state of the ACT, to Gold Creek Country Club, where Superintendent Simon Sneddon and his team they've been getting on with the job of doing a bit of turfing and establishing their newly constructed 8th tee complex, and also stripping the surface of the 7th tee. And that's involved a bit of leveling it out, getting those surfaces back to nice and flat, nice and level, and then turfing that tee as well. So there's a little bit of work been going on there with those couple of tee complexes that Simon and his team have been up to. And look, Gold Creek's, if you've never played it down there in Canberra, it's a great golf course. A lot of people that travel to Canberra, it's always on their list of courses to play. We know of Royals and Federal and sort of, there's Gungahlin Lakes. There's a few other courses around there, but usually Gold Creek is one of the must-play golf courses in the nation's capital. So a little bit of work happening to a couple of tees down there in the ACT. And, if you give it a couple of months, by the back end of autumn, you probably won't even know that those tees have been done. They'll be perfectly grown in, knitted in together nicely, back to cutting height of all the regular turf, all the regular tees for the rest of the golf course. And you'll be playing on brand new tees. You won't even know they were ever done. That's how good a job they do. Custom bind bunker liner. Now, I've mentioned custom bind. There's capillary concrete. There's Billy Bunker. There's all sorts of liners out there that we've talked about, and I've mentioned to you that are in the industry that we're all starting to hear a little bit more about. But custom bind's another one that I have mentioned in the past. And we move up into Queensland where custom bind is being used. It's being used at Palmer Coolum Resort, or Hyatt Coolum as we may formerly remember it, host of the Australian PGA for many a year. But now it's Palmer Coolum, and they've been putting custom bind into all of their greenside bunkers surrounding the 9th green, which is down by the clubhouse. You may or may not remember it from TV watching the PGA there. And for a course that's got plenty of unwanted bad press over the past few years due to its ownership, with Clive Palmer and so on and so on. Look, I'm not going to go into that rubbish. It's not about that. This is about the good side of things, where I'm really happy to see that they're moving forward on the golf course. So it's just such a positive thing to see these works happening to the course to improve different parts of the facilities. And these are the things that I'm trying to show you guys, that courses are moving forward. So, look, I've heard plenty of bad things about Coolum. I think it's time we started to judge it on its merits. If you've been up there recently, let me know what your thoughts are. Hopefully it has improved from the last few years where we've heard and seen, not so great stories about it, because we all know that it was at its peak in the times of hosting the PGA. It's easy to fall from that level when things change, when ownership changes and they take some money away or whatever it might be. But we may have probably seen the bottom end of it for Palmer Coolum with any luck, and now they're starting to move forward. And I've got to tell you, putting in a bunker liner, these things aren't cheap. So it gives you a measure that money is being spent on the golf course and the facilities to improve it. And I've got no doubt that, and this is just some of the stuff that I'm hearing, I've got no doubt for the team that are working on the golf course that they've been doing their best to move forward, and there probably has been money spent on other parts of the golf course. So I do struggle sometimes when I hear continuously bad things, and I used to work on a golf course where we lived in the shadow of a bad name for the best part of 20 years, mind you. So I know what it's like when a bad name comes across a golf course. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about Coolum, if possible. If anyone knows a little bit more out there, or if you're a regular up that way at all, I'd love for you to drop me a line through Instagram, Facebook, whatever it might be, just to let me know if you've heard much about it or how it's actually looking currently. But this is just a snippet of what I've heard. So just like I said, to see that they're spending a bit of money improving the golf course, improving those bunkers at Coolum on the 9th green is so good to hear, and it means that they're moving forward. They're getting better and they're improving the golf course. And that's great to hear for a course that we all used to know and love for a long time. And hopefully we're starting to see it creep back up into the better end of quality that we all know and love about Palmer Coolum. Headland Golf Club on the Sunshine Coast. Headland Golf Club, I should say, if my tongue's working properly. Look, Headland has just stripped off their 5th tee, and they've re-leveled it up. So a bit of laser leveling and that sort of thing going on just to get things nice and flat. And over time, tees change. They move with top dressing. They get a little bit of rise and fall. Different things happen to their levels over time, and that's due to little bits of maintenance over a long period of time. So it's really good to see that they're re-leveling the 5th tee and slightly increasing the size of the teeing area, which is allowing for more marker position. So good stuff happening at Headland Golf Club. Now, moving into New South Wales, we'll go down the south side of Sydney, along the beaches, right on the edge, we go to Wollongong Golf Club. Beautiful site for a golf course. Wollongong is a very old golf course and a golf club. Been there since the very late 1800s, and they've been very busy there at the moment, out on course, with a complete brand new Toro irrigation system going in on the full 18 holes. Now, this is a very, very big deal for any golf course, and an irrigation system is the bread and butter base infrastructure that you just need to have right so you can deliver the best product out there for everyone to enjoy. Speaking from my own experience, when you have a quality irrigation system, it makes life so much easier as a superintendent, not having to worry about labor and physically manning hoses and turning sprinklers on and off manually to water the areas that need it on a golf course. When you've got the best infrastructure at your disposal, you've got certainly the latest and greatest when it comes to a brand new irrigation system, these things change your life. They change golf courses. And what's going on at Wollongong is an update, an upgrade for an antiquated system. They're going with a brand new one. It's the latest gear, And I can tell you now, as a superintendent, as any greenkeeping staff there on course, they are going to have an absolute field day, and you'll see the quality of the golf course lift. These things aren't cheap. They're not small exercises, but they are essential to deliver better quality. So if you're a Wollongong regular, keep an eye on Wollongong. I know they're going through a bit to put these things in, but coming out the other side, give it a year or two, and it will be a different place, and it'll be that much better again. So good stuff happening down at Wollongong. Now we go to the Sandbelt area of Sydney, not Melbourne, into Sydney, into East Lakes Golf Club. Superintendent Nathan Bradbury and his team on the eastern suburbs are kicking off a very busy time ahead. And look, they've been working through, and they've started working through a stack of tees being rebuilt, and they've already started some, with a few others being rebuilt over the coming weeks. And we're talking holes like 3, 4, 16, 17. I think there's a couple more there in there as well that will all have new tees before you know it. And they're going to do it, and they're going to finish them off with one of my favourite grasses ever. And that's the ever impressive and super versatile Santa Ana Cooch, and that's going down. I'm so glad to hear it. I'm a huge fan. Woo! I'm jumping through hoops, because anywhere that I hear gets Santa Ana to go down on sort of short turf stuff like tees, surrounds, fairways, those sorts of things. I'm just a huge fan. They did it at Concord when Toke rebuilt Concord on the approaches and the surrounds of the greens that they did there. They put in Santa Ana Cooch. It turns out to be the best surface, and it's such a good grass. I cannot begin to tell you how good it is. So that's what's going on there at East Lakes, and that's really, really good. So well done to the guys and the club on their great selection choice of grasses. From my opinion, it's going to be a marked improvement to those areas on the golf course, and it's just going to be able to deliver such a good product. East Lakes have also had in a tree root pruner as well. Now, you may have heard something like this. I don't know. It is as it sounds. It's a root pruner, tree root pruner. And that's a big bit of gear. It goes on the back of a tractor, and it literally runs along tree lines, edges of fairways, that sort of stuff. And it will slice through all the shallow tree roots that creep into the irrigated areas, which is usually the fairways and green surrounds, and even tees, into the irrigated areas. And they compete with your turf for water, for nutrients. And if you don't have that, if you cut them off and they're not sapping the life out of your fairways are better for it. You'll see the dry patches disappear. You'll see improvements. You'll know the different tree types in different areas that dry off first. Certainly, as greenkeepers and superintendents, we can see them. There are always challenges. But this is a really good thing. And a lot more courses are starting to do it. And it just changes. Again, it's a little bit like grass types. This stuff changes the world. And it's going to be a real good improvement. And certainly it's instant improvement, where in the summertime when things get warm, you'll stop seeing these areas dry out first from the trees sucking the moisture from the fairways and the turf. So it's a really good thing. Makes a huge difference. And look, it's a good year to be doing this type of work as well, because the soils are a little bit softer due to the higher than average rainfall years we had this year from La Nina. So these sorts of tree root pruners can slice in the soil a bit better. It's not like hardened concrete, so it does make life a lot easier to do it. So plenty of stuff going on at East Lakes, which is really, really good. Now we go to South Australia, to the palindrome-named golf course that is Glenelg in Adelaide. They're getting stuck into their bunker renovations program. Look, I'm a huge fan of the Adelaide region of golf courses, and Glenelg is just another one. It's another one of those awesome courses to have on a bucket list Adelaide trip. And their bunker work is happening over the next few weeks, whereby they'll be redistributing sand around their bunker bases just to get a little bit more consistency to the depth of the sand and minimize any shallow areas that usually are a result of wind over time, blowing sand around. And they're also going to be shaving the reveted faces of their bunkers. So that's what they have at Glenelg. They've got reveted faces, a little bit like the old style Scottish and British Isles type pot bunkers, if you like. We know that those faces, you guys out there may not have heard that that's what they're termed reveted faces, which is stacked layered turf. Gives you that really sharp vertical edge, vertical face. What they're shaving off a bit of the decay, a bit of the old. You get a little bit of rotting of the old turf matter. You also get sometimes a little bit of moss and algae growth in areas that are a little bit more shaded over the days, get a lot less sun, that sort of stuff. So they're cleaning them up. Gives it nice, crisp layering detail. That's a showpiece of these reveted bunkers. So that's what they're doing. There's a little bit of work involved in it at Glenelg, but it's going to really bring out that detail in these bunkers. So Glenelg is going through a bit of work in the bunkers. And look, we always look for a bit of consistency. Some people say bunkers should be left alone and all that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, they're not as it stands. And most golf courses like to have that consistency for their players, for their members. And I'll be honest, as a golfer, I like to feel that bit of consistency. You can feel the differences when you're around and you go in different bunkers in different areas on different courses. But sometimes, I've got to be honest, I think as golfers, we all look for that level of consistency. Whilst they're a hazard, they're a consistent type of hazard is what we try to create in the game. For better or worse, that's how it is. So, a little bit of stuff happening in the bunkers at Glenelg, which is good. Now, I'm going to talk about sustainable golf for a minute. Now, I mentioned this a couple of podcasts ago when I talked about Manly Golf Club in Sydney. Has been doing a bit of work around their course, fostering threatened flora and fauna species on the course there. Well, there are many forms of golf courses doing sustainable things out on course. And this time I wanted to mention Glenelg. Now, you know what I talk about when I talk about it's all about sustainability. It's like we talk about in real life when we live and coexist in our lives. We try and improve our recycling, and we try and, be a little bit more efficient in what we do and go about things, and reducing our waste and reducing our input, those sorts of things. Well, we always do these things, and I talked about it in that podcast there about Manly, where they're trying to protect and foster threatened flora and fauna species around their golf course and bringing them back into the local area. Well, at Glenelg, they're also doing something that I wanted to point out, and I thought this is really cool. They've been putting out beehives to some of the areas of the golf course, and these areas are obviously out of the way from golf traffic, and they've recently harvested some 3.5 kilos of honey from their very first harvest from these beehives. That's a stack of honey. I don't know if you've ever bought a bucket, a kilo bucket of honey is pretty good. But 3.5 kilos from their very first harvest, that's sensational. And that's very, very impressive indeed, if you ask me. And I'm a huge lover of honey. Huge. Now, I love eating it straight from the jar. Tell me I'm a weirdo, but that's just how it is. Now, the honey that they are now harvesting out on course is going to be used in the club's Pine Hill Restaurant and Function Centre. What a great additional use of the golf course, and a wonderful addition to the menu of the golf club, using their very own honey, which will have its own unique flavour, because the flavour in honey is all about the flowers, where the bees collect the pollen from. All those little differences in the flowers and the pollens and from different tree types have different nuances and different flavours in honey. I sound like a bit of a weirdo, but I do love my honey, as you can tell. So, look, they're doing it at Glenelg. It's going to be their own golf course honey blend effectively. And I think this is a great idea. And to use it in the restaurant, in the club, to have it on the menu, this is the sort of stuff that I think makes a big difference in the little details of the clubs. And it's another sustainable element to golf and golf courses that I'm trying to show you what goes on. And I think it's great. I think more golf courses can do it well and truly. So well done to Glenelg Golf Club on a bit of sustainable golf. We love to see and talk about this stuff, and I'll try and bring more of it out to you. That's Walking the Fairways for this week, guys. Now, I know I said that was the end of Walking the Fairways segment, but I wanted to just put something in between this Walking the Fairways and then the interview that you're about to listen to with Tony Ellis. And it's literally Walking the Fairways, where myself, my wife, and our 6-month-old Savannah, little baby girl, we're actually out walking the fairways today, being the Sunday, the 4th day of the Players Series tournament, which was held at Bonnie Doon Golf Club in Sydney, on Sydney's Sandbelt, as we call it here. It's our little version. It's got a few courses like the Lakes and the Australian, and Bonnie Doon's there, and East Lakes is there. So there's a few golf courses on this wonderful strip of beautiful sandy soil in that area in the eastern suburbs of Sydney. But I just wanted to say how incredible it was to get out and walk the fairways, quite literally, like I'm saying, to watch golf live again, to be out there on the course, in amongst the players, in amongst the galleries. And they weren't huge galleries. It's not the Australian Open, but the Players Series was a spectacular little golf event. Now, I watched the coverage on Fox Sports from the first Player Series, which was held at Rosebud Golf Club down there in Victoria, hosted by Jeff Ogilvie. Well, the second one, I spoke to the wife about, and we decided that we're going to get down there and wander around and see. I wanted to see what the course was like. I'd been there a couple of years ago while it was still under construction. The stage 4 works of finishing off the first, the second, and those sorts of holes just around that practice area as well, around the clubhouse. And I've got to tell you, it was looking amazing today. It was absolutely fantastic. It was so good to see the course now that it's completed. And Cameron Smith, the superintendent on course, and his team have done an incredible job bringing that place up to a level in only a couple of years, like I said, since it's finished, to get it out there for a tournament such as this, hosted by Braithen Astor. And I bumped into him out there as well. He was wandering around doing all the things that you do as host, and he was doing interviews and bits and pieces around. So I bumped into him, said g'day, and got a photo with him as well, which was great. He spent the time. I saw him signing golf balls for kids as well. And you know what was good was the accessibility. It was free to enter. We got to see some great golf. We got to see a great golf course. And there was kids, there was families, young couples, old couples. There were groups of friends out there going to see golf. It was so good to see it. It was so good to be part of. So, look, congratulations to the PGA, to the WPGA, to Braithen Astor, who's involved with this one, to Bonnie Doon Golf Club specifically, and Cameron Smith and his team. Look, everyone involved in that event had done a wonderful job, and certainly to the players out there who participated and competed. It was great to see a mix and such an innovative event, which at the end of the day is seeing men and women compete for the same prize purse, which is, I think it's the only event in the world, if I'm not mistaken, that's done this. Scaled tee, so that they're all competing outright for the win. And there were also juniors involved who are competing out there in the event amongst themselves, albeit, but they were mixed in the groups with professionals and leading amateurs, and having people standing behind you on a tee, watching your every move, having TV cameras out there from, Fox Sports filming golf. It's a bit nerve-wracking, but it's a great learning experience for these young juniors as well. So, look, congratulations to everyone involved. It was a great event, and it was so good to be out there, and loved every minute of it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I have another interview for the Golf and Greenkeeper podcast, and I want to welcome you to someone. Look, I've got to be honest, I'm not sure if you know this person, if you've seen their stuff on social media. It goes by the handle on social media of the Nomadic Golfer, and that probably gives you a bit of an idea as to what this person is up to at the moment. And I'll introduce them. It's Tony Ellis. Welcome, Tony, to the Golf and Greenkeeper podcast. How are you, mate?
Thank you, Steve. Thank you very much. I'm going very well after a year of solid golf, and it's good to speak to you.
You know, my listeners are golfers. That's the essence of what I do. I try and invite conversation and educate people about the greenkeeping side of golf and architecture side and experiencing new golf experiences in general. And you really, the reason you and I got in touch is basically you epitomise some of that angle for me, is experiencing a lot of different golf. Now, as a nomadic golfer, mate, one of your goals is to have played 100 courses in 12 months. Mate, can you just tell us a bit about the background of this scenario and what it's all about from your side?
Yeah, there's a fair bit of background that goes into it, I suppose, mate. I've, over the years, been a member of a number of golf clubs and some pretty good courses attached to those golf clubs, and a range, I suppose, from a little 9-hole that I started at McLaren Vale, a little place called Ashbourne, through to being a member of the National Golf Club, which has 4 fantastic golf courses. And during 2019, I retired and ended my life as a corporate finance guy, and my wife and I decided we're going to travel around Australia for 3 or 4 years in a caravan. And when the COVID restrictions hit and we were restricted to New South Wales, she suggested to me, why don't I try to play 100 golf courses? I'd already started playing as we started our journey. I was, playing every second day, and she was pretty cool with that. She was happy to have some time away from me. And then, I'm not sure why, but but then as you know, the ability to travel stopped a bit. There were, you know, courses within an hour or 2 hours of where we were staying. She said, hey, it'll be a good thing to keep you on track if you try to play 100 golf courses. So
now that's a hell of a challenge thrown out there right there.
Yeah, it was good that she threw me that challenge and we were both on board.
Very much so. And okay, at the beginning of the concept, and you've started, you're traveling, and you're on your way, you're thinking, look, you know, I can do this. There's 100 course. I've never considered even. I know I've played a hell of a lot. I've probably played more than 100 because I have traveled a lot. I've been fortunate to do that, being in the golf industry as well. Yep. What does it feel like at the beginning of a path where you're going to try and play 100 golf courses in 12 months? What does that feel like? Is it daunting? Is it something that you relish and you go, this is going to be so cool? Because part of what you're doing is you're documenting a lot of this on your website.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was probably 20 or 30 courses in before I decided that we were going to have the goal of 100. So I already had a really good taste of that. And I'd already sort of been excited by some of the upcountry and more bush type. I thought I would be, but it sort of made the stuff confirmed what I thought in my mind, is that the glass half full guy, and even the most rudimentary or rough country tracks, I would always find something positive. What I wanted to get on the blog, I wanted to do was any country golf course that's trying its hardest and trying to get the people of its town together for social and you know, exercise and play golf. So my whole thing was about being positive about golf courses, and you know, my journey at the start said, hey, this is absolutely going to be possible. And then having played that 30 or so on the way to 100, yeah, it definitely wasn't daunting, Steve. It was pretty exciting to think, wow, you know, there's all these possibilities out there. And you get to the end and you think, wow, I've played 100. And because of the weird year that 2020 has been, I've been in New South Wales for like 10 of those months, and about 70 of those 100 have been in New South Wales. Think, wow, here's all those areas I still haven't played in New South Wales. So rather than, you know, taking 3 or 4 years to go around Australia, I think it's going to take me 20.
Well said, mate. Well said. Now, I should mention that we've got you obviously on the road. That's the midst of what you're doing. Whereabouts are you at the moment? Because the phone might get a little bit scratchy for people. So it's not the technology we're using. It's literally mobile phone reception, guys. So where are you at the moment? What part of? I know you're in New South Wales. Whereabouts are you?
It's not exactly in the golfing. In a little, I'm in a little country town called Kulak, which is about 20 k's out of Gundagai, between Gundagai and Cootamundra. In the first COVID restriction lockdown, we found ourselves here on a farm/camp called Kulak Cabins and Camping, and with 3 other couples for that whole 3 months. So we sort of had free reign of the farm, and I made a little 9-hole fun golf course here. And
wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it's been overrun by the once in a generation growth conditions at the moment, however, sadly.
Totally.
And come the end of the year, the owners had a couple of holidays booked, and their helper had left, so they said, how would you like to come and look after the farm and the camp while we're away? So we've done that.
Wow.
Just about to finish up and resume travels.
That's quite a little story in itself, being camped at a country campsite for 3 months, I know that was one of your bases in terms of travelling a lot around that southern part of New South Wales in the high country there to play a lot of the courses. Yeah,
so it was an interesting place, and having spent sort of 2020 probably 4.5 months from this base, and there'd only be 10 courses within an hour and a quarter drive from here. So it sort of left a lot of playing to be done outside of those 4.5 months. So I was able
definitely.
When I think about this ad over that 12 months, I did do a flying Canberra where I played 72 holes in those 2 days. And that did surprise me about the quality of the tracks there. And, you know, you think about golfing destinations for holidays, you know, that did surprise me on the upside of the quality the tracks there. I played Royal Canberra, Federal, Ioannina, and Gold Creek, and that was a great couple of days.
Yeah, there's some fantastic courses in Canberra, no, absolutely, and anyone who's been there as a golfer probably does know that. I've done a couple of segments on where it was in the midst of COVID, and I know that you've been a podcast listener of mine when it came to the travel side of things as well, and you heard out some of the destinations that I talked about, and you've played some of those courses incidentally in your travels. You've been up the North Coast, you've been out west. What I like about your little journey. I shouldn't diminish it. It's not a little journey. Your extensive journey.
Oh, that's been a little.
What I love about your journey is that you've kind of been able to see Australia, certainly the eastern side of Australia, in a way that most people probably have never experienced. In that golf you've done it in such a condensed time frame. And again, it might not seem like it, but it is in terms of weather conditions. And we've gone in a very quick swing from extreme drought to a La Nina event, which is high moisture content and higher rainfalls across the eastern seaboard of Australia. You've seen some significant changes in condition, and this is something that really intrigued me. Tell us a bit about what you've seen on the countryside from the worst conditions imaginable for generations to what I call the cycle of our wet seasons in Eastern Australia.
Well, I've been pretty fortunate in that last piece that you're talking about. We left the coast and Port Macquarie back in the end of October and headed back more central through Tamworth, Dubbo, Orange, and we seemed to miss all those big downfall days by a day here or there. So
yeah, right.
So I haven't. And now being back based here for the last couple of months and going to Canberra and even a quick trip back down to Melbourne and playing the National again, I haven't necessarily been caught up in the big El Nino piece. I did have my only real experience that I've had this year is the day I played at Bonneville, surprisingly enough.
Oh yeah,
and the back nine there, it was torrential for 9 holes, and I played. It was one of my more memorable rounds. I played with a great guy. His name is, I think, Dustin Knight. He's an ex-pro at Cypress Lakes in the Hunter.
Oh, yeah, at the Hunter, yep.
And him and I were the only two to complete the course in the comp that day, and him and I had the same score, and I beat him on the countback.
Mate, I've got to be honest. There's one thing about Bonneville and Coffs Harbour. When it rains, it rains.
Oh, it was torrential.
They turn it on. But
I haven't.
You've seen.
I've seen a fair bit of the other side though. I spent 6 weeks up on a farm in Glen Innes. We volunteered for a lady there, and I could speak for a long time about her and the respect I had for her on a 1,200-acre farm, looking after it herself. But
yeah,
seeing some of the courses through that area, I'm talking, Glen Innes, Armidale, Inverell, Tenterfield, that area. I'm seeing them come out of the drought and surging forward. The grass is getting back to normal, etc. That was a good experience. Everything was still firm and hard and running. And probably the most memorable out of those courses was Inverell. I really liked that. It was a course that struck me as using its natural assets. It's a course that really looked like it belonged in its environment, and also a place where they really looked after me. That's been one of my favourite trips up there.
That's pretty impressive. And like you talked about, because I know growing up in the Blue Mountains and doing a lot of travel in the Central West, and when it's dry, it's ridiculously dry. But when you have a high season of rainfall, the grass can cover the ground, and you just go, wow, I can't believe it. Where I thought it would never be green again, it's green. And you're experiencing some of these regional courses with grass on them. That is very much also more often than not very, very dry.
I've played in my 100. I've played 8 sand scrape courses.
I'm
not unfamiliar to that. I grew up playing golf in South Australia, in country South Australia, at Victor Harbour and a place called Ashbourne, which the McLaren Vale Golf. It's where the McLaren Vale Golf Club is, and listeners who are wine connoisseurs would know where McLaren Vale is. there's scrapes courses or sand scrapes courses around those areas as well. So I'm used to playing on some of those drier areas, and I should say I'm familiar with playing on those scrapes courses, but I still struggle with getting that little bump and run right. It's a unique,
mate. It's a
unique skill.
It's quite the knack.
Yeah.
It's quite the knack to be able to do it. I agree with you. It's you need certainly a bit of experience on those greens, the sand scrapes, to know just what to do and how to play them. But mate, look,
it's a totally different bump and run after having lived after that introduction to golf for the last 20 years. I've been living basically out of Melbourne, so and most of my golf has been on the sandbelt courses. So with all those tight lies around the greens there, you need to be able to hit the chip and run, but it's a little bit different pace once the ball gets on the green than on some of those sand scrapes.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. And look, okay, I'm sure you know your list pretty well. I'm curious, what was the first course you played that was unbeknownst at the time that you were going to embark on it? You played your first course, and then what was your last course?
The first and last course, both the sand scrapes. The first was on New Year's Day in Avoca in central Victoria in 42 degrees and an 18-hole sand scrape. But actually quite a good layout. They've hosted the Victorian State Sand Greens Championships on numerous occasions.
Oh, wow.
So quite a good layout. But in 42 degrees, following a couple of other, sort of century marks in the old measure, it was pretty dry and hard, and there was no green on it. So I'd like to go back and play Avoca in the winter, because I think that'd be quite a decent layout. And then Tipperary Golf Club in Young was my 100th course. I sort of picked that out, and that was obviously from the time I'd spent here at Kulak, so that was just over an hour away. And I thought, that'd be quite fitting if my 100th golf course was a place called Tipperary, because we all know it's a long way to Tipperary. and
Absolutely.
And the Tipperary golf course is quite unique. It's almost a little mixture between mini golf and golf. You've got to hit tee shots under limbs and fire away from greens on par threes. It's only a short setup of Tipperary. I think the par was like 56. So there's one on the 9 holes. There's one par 4 and 8 par 3. So it's a unique track, but it was it's something different and an experience. I'll tell you that.
No doubt, indeed. And look, I know, like I keep harking back to the fact that I've done a lot of travel through regional New South Wales myself, and some of the courses are very much central to a small township, to a village. They're a community space. They're I won't say they're the lifeblood of a place, but it's a very sort of community-based asset where people gather. They've got their weekend routines. They might be, the store people from the township and local tradies and that sort of stuff. And it really brings a highlight to people in those small townships, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. My 8 years of my life and of my golfing life is spent in a small town in South Australia on the Murray by the name of Barmera, Barmera, sort of halfway between Mildura and Adelaide. And that epitomises what you're talking about. It was, in those times in the 90s, it was the social hub of the town as well. And, for the number of people that lived in the town, the amount of people you got out playing golf was fantastic. And it was a really, really progressive thinking little club as well. So put those two elements together, it was a really, really fun place to be. And, having experienced that sort of feeling around a golf club, that's what appeals to me when I go to some of those country places. And you can see the clubs that operate like that. The Glen Innes Golf Club was one that sort of appealed to me from that. Well, everyone pitched in, and you could tell that there's a really good vibe about the place. But I mean, it's probably unfair of me just to single out Glen Innes, because a lot of those through those country areas, you can tell there's a lot of love around the place and a lot of people, volunteering their time. And I suppose, you get both sides. You get people volunteering their time, and then you see them come out and the competitive streak takes over, and there's a lot of, I'll call it friendly banter amongst the golfers when you're out on the course, and I love a bit of that.
Yeah. Look at, and I'm sure there's a lot of those competitive streaks in, in those little clubs, and it's good for the township too. You got a bit of sport gamesmanship going on between people, and they make fun events out of it. Golf days during the year, and there might be public holiday events. With a lot of places with Australia Day, just recently have a lot of Australia Day fun day events as well, and it a golf club in a small town really does have a form of entertainment for people, and it breaks down the challenges of regional life, doesn't
absolutely. it? It's a real it's a real positive to get people in those country towns stepping outside of their work, and especially a lot of people that work on the land, they think of that 24/7, and to get out and to take their mind off it, and to have a bit of banter with their mates and others around the town is a real positive.
It's can be quite incredible, and it's just nice to see people smile from the tough life it can be living a country life, certainly on living on the land, and to break some of that down with a bit of a smile and a bit of fun, and sometimes a competitive streak in a bit of sport is always a very, very nice thing to see and be part of. Mate, I want to ask you a little bit about your own thoughts on, and this isn't about comparing places to other places, because golf courses, and I have this conversation with a lot of people, golf courses and architecture, it's taste, it's personal, it's a personal feeling, it's emotion sometimes. What are some of the highlights golf courses that you've experienced? You mentioned Glen Innes a minute ago, and finishing at Tipperary. Whether they be the big or small, the Bonvilles of the world, or the Glen Inneses, or the Armadales, or the Cowras, we can list a few off. And I know I'm in New South Wales. I think from memory you played Royal Adelaide in amongst your journey, somewhere along the line. So you've done so many different types of golf courses. What was probably one of your biggest surprise packets? And then I want to know some of the ones that you just go, you know what, I've played it a few times now, or I've played it only once. And for me, that was there's a couple of my favourites.
It's a really good question. And it's probably, when I think about the best experience I've had on the golf course in this year, there's probably two categories. There's the one which is, the best course you played. This is talking about layout, condition, all that rolled into one. And there've been no surprises in this list. Royal Adelaide, and I may be biased because I am South Australian, is my favourite my favourite golf course in the world. If I had to pick a golf course where I can only play one golf course the rest of my life, I'd play Royal Adelaide. I've played a bit around the world. I'm not as well travelled and played as much golf around the world as you, but I just love Royal Adelaide. I love the design. I love the challenge. I love the ability to cater for everyone, but be tough when it needs to be. I like the ability for it to, if it has a big event, it grows the rough, it gets the greens quick, and it's like 18 shots harder than it was 4 weeks ago. So, so in that category, Royal Adelaide, it's not a course, but it's a day. The day I played Royal Canberra in the morning, I played Federal in the afternoon. Just two fantastic golf courses, but such a contrast that just sort of highlighted to me that not everything has to be beautiful and green and look pristine, which is what Royal Canberra looks like. And geez, I really enjoyed Royal Canberra. But then to go to Federal, and this might have been, this was late in my trip. It was November, and late November, and things were starting to brown off a bit at Federal, but it was so quintessential Australia in that bush setting. They hadn't overpoured the water on it. They'd actually had it hard and fast for their club championship, so things had turned a little brown, but it was just so natural, and it was a good test of golf. That was probably one of my best days.
Nice.
And, within the courses that I played, three of the National Golf Club courses, I played those this year as well. Long Island, the old course, and Gunnamatta, and I mean, I could talk for ages about them as well. But
did that include the renovated Gunnamatta that Doak had reworked?
Absolutely. That's a ripper of a track, and it really goes to that philosophy that any golfer would feel comfortable playing there. There's, apart from a couple of the tee shots, there's nothing real scary about it, and the fairways are wide, and so you could the 18 to 20 handicapper can go around making bogeys all day and not feel too scared here. He'll make his handful of pars, but if they want to put the pins in some spots, you know, the good golfer trying to make birdies, if he or she hits a bad shot, they will be penalised. It's sort of that ultimate sort of mix, if you like. It's wide fairways, but there's a side that'll always be more advantage and have a better shot in than the other side. And that
Absolutely.
side that is better to come in from will be the riskier side to attack. So they've done a really, really good job of that. I'm
very good.
A massive fan of the old Long Island course. That's why I joined there 20 years ago. And to me, that's still a great, honest test of golf. What you see is what you get. So, yeah, I talk about all those country courses I played, and you look at the different sort of categories, the best courses that I played with those. But then when you then look on the other side and see some of the places that surprised me and gave me as much joy, if you like, for it sounds a bit corny.
Yeah. Well, no, it does, because it opens up a different kind of emotion that really gets you excited. Like you said, it's still a level of excitement from playing Royal Adelaide to playing somewhere that, you know, and I think I've said this before, I think a lot of it does come down to a subconscious level of expectation. Yep. And, you know, when we go to regional tracks, we don't often really have much of an expectation. And you'll come across something and you just go, that is so not what I was expecting. It's just
absolutely.
Go on.
And these courses fit absolutely in that category. The one that I always come back to is Junee. It's only an hour from here, and you rock up. Hey, it's not the greatest manicured course. The facilities are very basic. You get the first tee, and the little putting green is only just a putting green, the practice putting green. And the first hole's a par 5, sort of almost a blindy tee shot over a hill, and it gives no hint as to what's coming. And then it is just a magnificent layout. It uses all its natural assets. There's, you know, dogleg par 4s around rocks that existed there forever. The course looks as though it belongs there. It looks as though it's been there since the beginning of time.
Right.
To pick up on your earlier phrase, you rock up in the car park, you start your game of golf, and you don't expect anything. And then as the round unfolds and you see the layout and the experience through the different holes and how they've sort of scoped this course out, it's magnificent. And you come to some of those places and I'm not being unkind to the locals, but some of them I don't think they realise how good a golf course they've got.
And you know what? I agree with you 100%. And more often than not, it's probably because they're not a golfer that's so far into the game that you know, wants to travel around and travel to and challenge themselves or play other people in a pennant sort of environment or something like that. So they just love their golf and they love their home track. And sometimes it's too far to worry about. Sometimes to travel 100 Ks for another game of golf as opposed to a metro course, or go, you know what, I'm going to travel the 15 kilometres down the road to play a different track next week or next month. And when you're a country golfer, you really do love your home course because it's the only real course that's accessible.
I fully agree.
And so there's that element that they don't appreciate it. To a certain extent, they don't appreciate how good it is above anything else that's around, or that, you know, comparing it to, look, I think we've all played metro courses that, and I'm not going to name anyone in particular, but I think we've all played metro courses, whether they be struggling financially or going through difficult times, that are nowhere near as good as a regional golf course that might have a handful of volunteers looking after it.
But some of those
know what I mean?
Courses may be in pretty good condition per se, but not necessarily have the natural attributes or the layout that country course, which isn't
exactly
Nick, has. Harden,
100%.
Harden is another one, and probably,
Oh, really?
Probably,
okay.
It's a lot of those same characteristics as Junee. You rock up and there's no hint early that it's going to be fantastic, but it's just 18 unique little holes, nothing duplicated. Some real good thinking needs to be done off tees, and it's not overly penal, but it again, it'll punish you if you get a little bit too aggressive, but you could plot your way around, 20, 25 handicap and still really enjoy your round. That's a similar. I had that in a similar sort of category to Jeannie as two of the biggest upside surprises I had. I mentioned Inverell before. That also was uplifted by the experience I had on the day. They were doing some work on a dam on the 16th, and they'd closed the back nine unbeknownst to me. And I ran into the guy. His name was John. He was the pro/general manager, and he said, I told him what I was doing. He said, "Don't worry, you can play. You go out there. I'll tell the guys working out there that you're going to play." So I played this back nine without any pins in, and so that sort of heightened my experience. But that's the similar. They one of the most affected by the drought of the courses that I played. And he'd said, only 6 months ago we were still playing off turf mats rather than hitting off the fairway. We were
really BYO grass
mats around, and you got a bit of a hint of that on the first 2 or 3 holes. It was really dry. They were coming out of that. Well, that was in July, August, I think, when I played through that area. Actually, it was later than that. It was September, but that had, a bit of rain through there, and that course would be a great little track.
Yeah, wow, and just awesome experience. And for anyone listening, if you're thinking about travelling around New South Wales, this is the sort of stuff that gets even me excited. Now, I've played some of these courses before, and some of them I haven't played for 15 plus years. So it gets me excited, mate. Just the way you're talking, Tony, gets me excited about going back out there and traveling around and experiencing it all again. Because, a lot of the time I was in my early 20s, so it has been 15 years since I've been out to a lot of these golf courses, and things do change. And I've said time and time again that a golf course is a living environment, and they do change over their life cycle. In many, many different ways. And just hearing you talk gets me excited. And I love that you're someone, like I said at the beginning, you're someone who's experiencing things so different to any normal traveling golfer, because you really are going out of your way to try all these different tastes of golf.
It's not ego, though. Each time when you play a new course, it doesn't do the handicap any favours.
No, I'm sure it doesn't. I'm sure it doesn't. Mate, tell us a little bit about your website, and you've got the blog there, and you're doing stuff on Instagram. How do we go about finding you in some of those spaces?
Yep. So I'm on Instagram at Nomadic_Golfer. There's a link on that Instagram bio to my website, it's a long handle. It says Australian Golf Course Tour by Caravan.com, which sort of gives a bit of an insight into what I was thinking when I left.
Yeah, no, fair enough, mate. That's wonderful. Is Instagram the only social media that you're on? Are you on Facebook as well, or
as well? The blog I copied through to my Facebook, which is just Tony Ellis.
Fantastic. Now, Tony, thanks for, all that, where we can get in touch with your website and see how you're traveling on social media, which is great. And people can chat to you on social media and see some of your photos. You take a lot of good photos about the courses. A bit about your blog and your website. I like how you describe the golf courses, so we can sort of really get a feel for what you're going through and the way that you experience in the course and how it unfolds. And some of your photos there is really good information.
I'd probably get a bit carried away with the descriptions. Perhaps if I was a better photographer, a photo would tell 1,000 words. But I've really enjoyed, actually, I get out, play the course, and makes me think about different things as well. So I sort of enjoy both sides.
Yeah, most definitely. And so, okay, I won't spoil the part. Well, we've already touched on the fact that you've played 100 at Tipperary.
Yep.
You mentioned that you're going to be travelling around the country, provided borders open and you can do so. Where do you see? Are you going to keep playing golf in this kind of manner? Maybe not put a number on things, but are you going to keep trying to to play different golf courses as you go through the next few years of your life together with your wife and your dog and your caravan?
Absolutely. Obviously, depending on the areas we go. So when we choose to do a bit more outback and up the middle, etc., there might be 2 or 3 or 4 months where I won't be playing much. But our plan from the start as we travel was always to not have a plan. And and as I've been telling everyone around my trip, that's going beautifully to plan. But I have already set the goal to repeat and go back to back and play another 100 this year.
Oh, really?
I'm not unfamiliar to having to play a lot in short periods of time as for last year. So yeah, I'm keen to, because I get through last year and I look at all the courses I played in New South Wales, and I look back and see the areas that I haven't played golf, and there's some pretty good areas of golf that I haven't played any in New South Wales. Even I'm talking, in the city of Sydney, through Narooma, through the Hunter, through Newcastle, through Wollongong. I haven't played anywhere through any of those.
Yeah,
so
right.
I've got a lot of scope in New South Wales, let alone the rest of the country. I'm going back to South Australia, and I've played a lot of courses in South Australia, but obviously not a lot in my 100. So I'll play a few there, and then wherever our journeys take us, you're never too far away from a golf club.
No, look, and in all those country towns, there's more often than not, there's one hiding there somewhere, whether it be a 9-hole sand scraper or an 18-hole course just out the side of town that you didn't even know existed, as I think we've mentioned through a number of times already. But that's going to be quite the next few years ahead of you, and it's going to be fascinating I know I'll be watching and following your page, and I ask anyone out there if they're interested in seeing all these different types of Australian golf courses that you won't have heard of in these corners, and some of them you might not have seen or played for a few years, and Tony's going to go back to them and show you some updated photos and how they're going and what they look like, which is going to be really interesting to see. But I'm going to ask you, and you mentioned about not having a plan, but there's one golf course that I don't know I'll ever get the chance to play, but on a journey such as yours you might, called the Nullarbor Links.
I reckon it's, especially when I've been out in the country areas and I tell people what our journey and plans to travel are, combined with my golfing goals, the first question out of 90% of people is, have you played the Nullarbor yet? So I haven't, and absolutely I will. I've heard many stories, mostly from golfers who've experienced. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to having that unique experience.
Oh, mate, look, the longest golf course in the world, I couldn't think of nothing more Australian, I think, if I'm being honest.
Exactly.
But, look, it's so good to see you experiencing these different things, and I've really been intrigued, and I love when you put a post up. I get excited about seeing your posts, and we've had comments backwards and forwards about some of the, you're giving me mystery holes to try and name a number on certain golf courses, and I love that challenge as well. But I really get excited to see what courses you're playing next, mate. It's a unique story, and certainly a unique travel story in Australia. And for golf, I think something like this, and I'll say it out loud, but I think this is the sort of stuff that gets people excited about golf as well. And I love the journey that you're on. It's very unique, mate. I wish you well, and I'm sure we'll be talking again very, very soon, no doubt, to see what else you've come up with, what part of the country you're in, mate. And it's just great to see someone embarking on a unique story. And I hope I've seen you mentioned, I think you've shown me that you had a local paper somewhere had an article about you, and it's just something so unique to do. Mate, 10 points and all full credit to you, because this is quite an exceptional journey.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks a lot for having me on your podcast. I've had an unbelievable out of the year, and especially traveling through those country courses and the characters that you play golf and perhaps have a beer with at the end of the day. It's been fantastic, and only spurs me on to keep doing it, mate.
Absolutely, mate. So good to hear, and so good to hear your excitement level about continuing to do more. I urge anyone listening, please go out and follow the Nomadic Golfer on any of the social media platforms. Follow the blog, keep up to date with where Tony's at, because it's a really interesting journey, and you might find somewhere that you want to play. And I love telling people about playing different golf courses and experiencing different things. So follow Tony, mate. I really appreciate you being on the podcast and accepting the invitation. Such a good voice to hear, and a unique experience to talk about golf around Australia. And mate, I wish you well, and certainly travel safely on your journey around. And throughout this COVID times, mate, you're doing something that I think most of us can only but dream of if we've got work and we're trying to, keep doing those things we do day to day. It's so good to watch and escape in this manner and follow your journey, mate. Fantastic. So thank you very much for being on the podcast, and safe travels, and keep doing what you're doing, mate, because it's great to watch.
If you insist, mate, I will keep doing what I'm doing. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me on the podcast. I really appreciate it, and we'll keep in touch, mate.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, Steve.
Enjoy. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to a close for episode number 15 of the Golf and Greenkeeper podcast. I really do hope you enjoyed it, as always. But what I'd ask is if you could please do me a favor, leave me a comment, send me some messages. Look, share the podcast as well. Be great to, I greatly appreciate you sharing it out there and passing it on, telling your friends about it. I'd love to get some more listeners still throughout Australia, throughout the world indeed. But I really do appreciate you taking the time out to listen in the first place. And it's glad that you keep coming back to listen to some more of the stuff that I've got to tell you about. And I do hope you enjoy it, which clearly, if you come to episode number 15, obviously you are. So thank you very much, guys. And I look forward to talking to you in number 16. You hit them clean and we'll keep them green.